சூடி இளம்பிறை அணிந்து மோனத்து இருக்கும் முழுவெண்மேனியான் கருநிறம் கொண்டு பார்க்கடல் மிசை கிடப்போன் மகமது நபிக்கு மறையருள் புரிந்தோன் இயேசுவின் தந்தை என பல மதத்தினர் உருவகத்தாலே உணர்ந்து உணராது பல வகையாக பரவிடும் பரம்பொருள் ஒன்றே அதனியல் ஒளியுறும் அறிவாம் அதனிலை கண்டார் அல்லலை அகற்றினார் அதனருள் வாழ்த்தி அமர வாழ்வு எதுவோ.
Small cheers and great welcome makes the merry feast. I now feel extremely elated in welcoming Dr. R. Mercilata, Associate Professor, PG and Research Department of English, V.O.Chidambaram College, Thoothukudi. Welcome this esteemed gathering by rendering the welcome address. Over to you, ma'am.
Respected people on and off the dais and online, good morning. We are happy to see you all on the second day of our international conference on cultural studies in Indian socio-literary scenario. This conference aims at analyzing the conglomeration of culture in India, which is multilinguistic, multi-ethnic, and multi-religious. At the outset, I would like to welcome our principal, who, owing to some work, cannot turn up here, but he has been with us and he always encourages and extends his support in all our academic endeavor. I also welcome Dr. Vincent B. Netto, Head, School of Language, Sri Narayana Guru Open University, Kollam, who is here with us and who is going to enlighten us on culture. I'm also happy to welcome Dr. S. Prabhakar, Head and Professor of English, Manomaniyam Sundaram University, who will meet us on virtual platform. And I'm happy to welcome Dr. Prince, IQAC Coordinator, Head, Department of Physics, Dr. S. Rathika, IQAC Assistant Coordinator, Department of Zoology, and Dr. Gomati Nayagam, Head, Department of Computer Science of our college, who have been with us right from yesterday to give us moral support. And I'm happy to welcome the faculty members, scholars, and students of various colleges who are here with us and those who are online. It is your overwhelming response and your support that gave us a Midas touch. And before concluding, I would like to welcome our student friends and scholars. Once again, I welcome each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's my fortunate us to have Dr. Vincent B. Netto, a former principal, Fatima National College, Kollam, Associate Professor of English, Kannur University, and now the Head of School of Languages, Sri Ranganayaguru Open University, Kollam. So he has 30 years of experience in research and as a professor. He is an UGC Research Year Award in 2012 to 15. So we are blessed to have you here, sir. So we are blessed and you have a research person. So over to you, sir.
I will
Yes,
be
sir.
operating the slide. ഇത് വേണ്ട ഇത് മാറ്റി he will operate.
Okay, okay. He will operate.
you just remove this and it is flexible ആയിട്ട് നിൽക്കാൻ ഇങ്ങോട്ട് കൊടുത്തരാം.
So you have the printed copy of the slide?
Yes. Good morning to all of you, respected faculty members, research scholars, and academic fraternity. At the outset, let me express my profound gratitude to this institution, particularly so Dr. Rajit, my dear friend, for inviting me to this college. No, I am very proud and happy to be here, and this is my second coming to Thoothukudi. Once I was in another college, and today I'm here with you to share my thoughts on democratic polity, Agamben's paradox of sovereignty. Okay, you might have heard about Agamben, Giorgio Agamben. Now, before that, I would like you to read a quote from John Stuart Mill. That is the immediate provocation to my paper, right? That so few dare to be eccentric marks the chief danger of our times. You being literature students or humanities students, I advise you to be a little eccentric, lest the world be in peril. Eccentricity is a sign of genius. There is only a slippery edge between the normal sanity and eccentricity. And genius have a tendency to be eccentric. And nowadays, academicians are not being eccentric. That is the greatest tragedy of the academic community. Okay, so let me take you to the first aspect. Before I introduce you the theoretical part, I will take practical illustrations from nations all over the world, probably, and then illustrate my concept. Right? You might have read in the newspaper of a recent incident in Muzaffarpur. A teacher, within inverted commas, I don't want to call her teacher because she is eccentric beyond limits. Okay, there are certain levels to eccentricity, and when you become too much eccentric, you are mad, you are lunatic. And that teacher who persuaded her children, her Hindu students, to beat a Muslim boy. You might have read in the newspaper? Yes. And this is the country where the so-called teacher persuades a Muslim student, a child, to beat and to molest, to attack a student just because that particular student happens to be a Muslim. Okay? You got the incident. The second incident is the unfortunate arraying of Arvind Kejriwal in Tihar jail for reasons several. And he is there confined to the Tihar jail. Thanks to His Majesty, he is served food from his house because he is suffering from diabetics. This is also known to you. Am I home at you? Okay. And here is the relevance of Agamben. Okay, Agamben, Giorgio Agamben, an Italian philosopher, political thinker, an erudite who always challenges you, who always trickles you with certain eccentric concepts. The first of his major work is called Homo Sacer, Sovereign Power and Bare Life. Look at the subtitle, Sovereign Power and Bare Life. You get the meaning of that word, right? Sovereign power, the power of the ruler. Bare life, I will tell you what is bare life. Bare life is the life of that Muslim boy who is beaten because he is a Muslim in the class. Okay, bare life is Arvind Kejriwal, who is now confined in the Tihar jail. Clear? Okay. And to the first aspect, Homo Sacer. Homo means man, Sacer means sacred. The sacred man. But there is no sacredness about man because he is the most irrational of all rational creatures. Am I home to you? Okay. I may be provoking you. You can defend your argument. You can counter me after the debate is over, the deliberation is over. And he has books. The main title is Homo Sacer, Sovereign Power and Bare Life. This particular book had several volumes with several titles. The titles are there. State of Exception, Stasis, The Sacrament of Language, The Kingdom and the Glory, Opus Dei. And reading all this, you know what it is all about. What is the sacrament of language? Have you heard Descartes? Descartes, cogito ergo sum est. I think, therefore I am. To Agamben, I speak, therefore I am. Thoughts without language is nothing. When he uses the word speech, it simply means not this eloquent speech, not the articulated speech, but it can be the gestures, the paralanguage, the non-language, like silence, pauses, everything. Okay, that is the crux of the argument in the book called Sacrament of Language. And now let me go to the different terms. I am forced to cut short my argument because of the constraints of time. To the next slide, please. Okay. Therefore, Agamben's Homo Sacer, this is essentially a critique of law and society, a critique of sovereign and subjectivity, a critique of society and law. Okay? We have laws. All of you are here because there is a law in the college that you should attend the seminar. You know for certain that you will never profit much, but you waste a whole day because there is a law. And law implies violence. Law implies violence. There is the authority there in the form of a principal or in the form of your head who will inflict violence on you metaphorically, metonomically, or synecdochically, sometimes physically also. You get my points? Therefore, violence is the sustaining power behind law. You obey the traffic rule. Why? You are always on the left side while riding and on the right side while walking. Why? Why? Is it because you are concerned after your safety? No, because you are scared of the traffic policeman. The police, the military, the state apparatus, dispositives, all these are there in the forms of incarceration, camps, Holocaust, who will force you to obey the rule. And to my first instance. And the parent of this child, that Muslim boy, was forced to give a request that he has no complaint, that the teacher has never persuaded the child to beat his son. Why? Why was he forced to do so? Because he was forced by the sovereign of the state, the ruler of the state, to do so. Okay, and to my next point. The sovereign reduces the bios to a soil. Therefore, he introduces two words. He introduces two words. I have not come to a previous line. One more previous. Okay. He reduces the bios to soil. Therefore, two words there. Greek words. Bios meaning life, animal life, and soy means bare life. Therefore, when I use the word bios, it means the life of a political man. You are bios. Used to a bare life dictated by the confines of the society. Clear? Okay. And to next point. The sovereign is one who decides on the exception. Where are we living? We are living in a democratic society. Right? What is democracy? What is democracy? Democracy is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And for realistic people, it is always far from the people, it is offing the people, and it is buying the politicians or buying the voters. Okay, let me come to my point. And let's go to another incident in America. You remember 9/11? Yes, all of you? Can you just recollect me? What is the incident? 9/11, 2001. What happened? Yes, the crash of the United Airlines 175 into the Twin Towers of America at 9:03 a.m. And the first hour, 17 minutes later at the second hour. And what happened? We had live images of burning towers, fanning flames, falling stones, and crumbled lives. Okay, we had a horror of the sublime. That is called the sublime of horror. You have heard about sublimity. Okay, and many were there in the streets, in their private rooms, enjoying what? The ecstasy of the flame, because American tower is falling down. Okay, and metaphorically and metonymically, I mean, this was aimed at the two important aspects of America. One is economy, the other is military. And America is America just because of its economy and military powers. Not because it is the largest or greatest democracy in the world. We are the largest democracy. Okay, all demons. Right? Come back. Therefore, this crash, I have told you, is metaphorically and metonymical because it has been targeted in the very icon of America. What are the icons of America? The military and the economy. The Twin Towers, the Pentagon and the towers. Okay, what happened after this? What happened after this? 2001 in America? Then the President George Bush made a speech. You are either with us or with them. You are either with good or with the evil. And this evil or them are, who were they? Who were they? The Muslims. I am not here for the Muslims, but I am speaking the reality. They were mocked as terrorists, and terror assumed new proportions. And for me personally, that was the failure of a state apparatus. That was the failure of America in resisting such a simple attack. Get my point? America, which appears to be the biggest country, and let me quote, and later we have had the American army moving to Baghdad, tormenting, torturing, disseminating, killing, assaulting people one after the other. And you might, if you are interested, go to your internet, search for Abu Ghraib prison images of 2001, where you will see dogs like terriers or Rottweilers jumping at human beings naked and nude. That is the reality of horror. That is the biopolitics of terror. And to my next point, this sovereign creates an indistinction between law and violence. Now there is violence here. My point is clear. And the violence becomes a law. And you simply justify this violence as law. Okay, what is nomos? Nomos means simply the laws. Nomos means laws. Who drafts the laws? The sovereign. The sovereign drafts the laws. What are laws? Laws are violent perpetuating mechanisms. Okay, Homo sapiens. To the next slide. Am I clear? Yes. Now I will go to another incident later. Okay. Now I have already given you 3 aspects. Yes. And in our age, we are virtually all hominus sacri. Who is this hominus sacri? Sacrificial animal. You cannot be sacrificed because you are bare life. You are outside the law. You are outside the divine law. You are outside the human law. Therefore, soul cannot be sacrificed, but can be killed. Okay. Therefore, take me, if you are a victim of an unpleasant situation, even gods are not pleased. Because your death is never a sacrifice. It is mere killing, a brutal killing. Clear? Okay. Let me go to the next point. Okay. Therefore, the word Aristotle's bios politikos. Politikos means political kingdom. And we have the political life. For example, the life of a student is bios. The life of a carpenter is a bios. The life of Mahatma Gandhi is a bios, not his death. I will come to that aspect later. Okay, or let me now tell you what it is. So, do you remember the death of Mahatma Gandhi? Anyone? Yes. Can you narrate me some of the incidents? When did it occur? Who was Mahatma Gandhi? Mahatma Gandhi was the father of our nation. I love him because he gave up his legal profession for the people of this country. He came back from Africa in 1910, joined the national movement and gave a people face to this national movement. So far then, the nationalist struggle was only a struggle against feudalism, a struggle against zamindari system, a struggle against East India Company. Now, East India Company means the British. Now, it is a struggle for the people. You have heard about the Champaran movement, Gandhi's Salt Satyagraha. Okay, what is the Salt Satyagraha? 1920. It is an evasion of tax. The British imposed 20% tax on salt, and Gandhi refused and asked his people to refuse to pay the tax, and that gave much money to our people. And the salt means the salt of the earth. It is used by all, including the Shudras, Vaishyas, Kshatriyas, and Brahmins. Okay, therefore, when he declared the Salt Satyagraha was a strike unto or to the inner heart of Indian psyche or the humanity as a whole, incorporating the Buddhist, Adivasis, Christians, Dalits, Sikhs, Parsis, Hindus, and all the diverse, heterogeneous group of this country. And what is Champaran movement? I want you to learn this, because Champaran movement was a movement which was for the profit of the farmers. It was a movement to procure a fair price for the farm products, for crops. Get the point? It is a movement to procure fair price for farmers. And we had a farmers protest in 2019 in India. Another in 2021. What happened? The farmers were beaten. They were just dragged down the streets. Therefore, you have a contradiction of leadership. Okay, and now to Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi. I was speaking about Mahatma Gandhi. Then only you will understand. Therefore, Mahatma Gandhi was moving from his Birla house, fragile because he was fasting for many days, and he was moving for a prayer meeting. And there was a crowd, the admiring crowd, calling Gandhi, Gandhi, Gandhi. And amidst a crowd, there arose a man whom you call Godse. Whom you call Godse. He is Godse. Right? He did what? What did he do? He bowed to him, shot him 3 times at a point blank in stomach and chest. Poor Gandhi greeted him. Thank you, my boy. You have shot me late. And slumped to the ground, mortally wounded, and cried, Ram, Ram. Soon after the death, the body was wrapped in white in the red national flag and taken to the Ganges River. Late in the evening, Nehru gave a great speech. Do anyone remember the speech? No. The light has gone out of our lives. The light has gone out of our lives. Our beloved leader is no more. Okay. And why did I bring that aspect? No, that point, the nomos of the modern, where we have the convergence of democracy and totalitarianism. A convergence of fanaticism and fascism. A convergence of democracy and totalitarianism paying a heavy price, the price of a Mahatma, a great soul. To the next slide. So we have, I will give you a little history. The concept of the sovereign is taken from Carl Schmitt, another philosopher. You might read him. You can use this as a research paper, I hope, a very prospective research area. And I have asked one of my students to tread into this path because it's rather interesting in the growing turmoils of this country at the present moment. Look at that point. The concept of the sovereign is borrowed from Carl Schmitt, and Carl Schmitt says the sovereign is one who decides on the exception. Who is the sovereign? Sovereign is one who decides on the exception. What is exception? Exception is emergency. Emergencies can be because of civil wars, ethnic conflicts, poverty, unemployment, or maybe because of certain disruption in the systems, all causing sovereign to impose exception. To impose exception. And I have quoted two other writers, two other critics, Walter Benjamin, who has a essay called Critique of Violence, where he equates violence springing from law. There are different kinds of violence. Let me not come into that aspect. And now, another writer, Hannah Arendt, you might have heard her, Hannah Arendt, who was flying from country to country just because he spoke truth to power. She was haunted. At last, she was killed in a forest. And what does she say? The fundamental right is the right to have rights. What is a fundamental right? The fundamental right is the right to have rights. And rights are very important. And sovereign, I have also used Foucault, Michel Foucault. You might have heard about him, right? History of sexuality. Okay. The archaeology of power. These are some of his works where Foucault equates biopolitics, biopower with oikonomia. Oikonomia means economics. And now let me come to the economics of this country. What is happening? The whole world. What is happening to our economy? The rich are getting richer. The poor are getting poorer. And that is the economics of the 20th or 21st century. The bottom line of the neoliberal market is profit. Even educational institutions are going to be marketed. Sooner or later, your institution will become one of the greatest markets in Thoothukudi. Okay, which will offer education at expensive prices. Take from me, this is not alone in your institution. This will happen all over the country. And NEP envisages PPP, which is called private-public partnership or enterprise, Therefore, as far as the economy is concerned, I will give you the statistics of economics, and then you will be okay. So I have already spoken to you about what you call the farmer's right being put into off by the government. And today we have large amount of money being given to big corporates. The poor are denied any amount of money. They are always, the bank is like a Damocles sword upon them. Okay. And it is a Sisyphean myth, that we labor in vain because we don't have anything to come. So let me go to the next aspect. Okay, this is over. Come to the next aspect. Okay. Okay. So I am going to connect Indian democracy and sovereignty. This is the largest democracy of India. Our nation has nearly 4,635 diverse and heterogeneous groups, with 19.4% being minority communities. There are 20 languages as far as the 8th schedule of the Constitution is concerned. Thousands of dialects. Okay, this is the country. And we have diversities, divergent traditions, different languages, veritable feast of food, large array of garbs and garments. Okay, this is a composite culture, a multicultural hub, a melting pot. It is not a cultural mosaic, wrapped in superstition. No, that is the Eurocentric concept of India. India is considered as a cultural mosaic wrapped in superstitions. Now, when Americans or British speak of India, they speak of India's Kama Sutra academies, of whom you call the gurus or godmen, promising instant salvation, quick nirmana, and karma, whether it's karma kola or nishkama karma or whatever it is. Therefore, we have India, which is dubbed as a land of superstitions, Neanderthal practices, a gyrations of barbarous tribes. But the real India is not that India. India is a wonder. The wonder that was India. That is the title of a book by A.L. Basham. A.L. Basham, who speaks of the heterogeneous variety of India. And India is a land of glorious traditions. We have an argumentative tradition, a tradition of Vad and Vivad. You have heard about Krishna-Arjuna debate in Kurukshetra? Have you read? Krishna asking Arjuna to wage war against the enemy. Right? Enemies are his own brothers. And Arjuna hesitates. After a long line of debate, dialogue, discussion, deliberation, Arjuna paves way. Arjuna succumbs because Krishna is God Avatar. Arjuna is concerned about the end product, while Krishna is not concerned about the end product. What is the end product of war? What is the end product of war? A large number of widows. Right? War will result in a kingdom of widows. You have always wars are fought by whom? Men. And dying men will deliver widowed mothers who will be raped, molested, attacked, that which is a common aspect in every country, every nation. Okay, therefore, Krishna persuades, and alas, Arjuna accepts, he wages a war. And what my point is, this is a land of argumentative Indians. And we have a title, Argumentative Indian, a text by whom? Amartya Sen. Okay, Amartya Sen has a book called argumentative Indian, which shows that Indians have a long line of deliberations, dialogues, discussions, and discourses. We believe in deliberative democracy, not authoritative democracy. We believe in a functioning democracy, not a anarchy. And when India got freedom, John Kenneth Galbraith wrote, India is a functioning anarchy. Why? Because when we got the independence, we had an untried government, an undigested partition, and unclear political alignments. We were not prepared for the democracy. But the Constituent Assembly, led by Rajendra Prasad, Dr. Ambedkar, chairman of the Constituent Assembly, took years and years to draft this great constitution. And the greatest, the edifice of Indian democracy is in the Constitution. And what does the preamble of the Constitution read? What is the preamble of the Constitution reading? We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. It goes on. And to secure to all its citizens justice, liberty, and fraternity. Those are the three words. Justice, liberty, and fraternity. There is no meaning in liberty without equality. There is no meaning in fraternity without justice. And what is justice? There is a great tradition of India in justice, Needhi and Nyayam. You have heard about Needhi. Needhi refers to a particular group, while Nyaya refers to a larger group. Needhi is more concrete, Nyaya is more universal. Okay, therefore, from Needhi we move to Nyaya. India has such a great legacy. And that is why I spoke about the Indian legacy. Okay, and to my next point, let us go to the next slide. Okay. You have heard about Samuel Huntington? All of you? Have you heard about this great writer? He has a book called The Clash of Civilizations. The Clash of Civilizations, where he speaks of India as a Hindu civilization. And this word Hindu was a word used by Raja Ram Mohan Roy to show a particular group of people. And you know his Sati, the concept of Sati. And do you know the reality? There were 800 women revolting against Sati at the initial stage, as we had many women revolting in Kerala against going into Shabarimala. But revolts are temporary. Sati was enforced, women became free. They could remarry. And that was the greatest contribution of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. And India is not a Hindu civilization. India is not what you call a land of merely this caste system. This is more than that. There are plethora of differences. We believe in the exegetical traditions of Hinduism. India was a Buddhist country for 1,000 years. Do you know the history? India was a Buddhist country for 1,000 years. And Buddhism is famous for its concept of Maitri. Maitri means fraternity. Maitri means fraternity. And you speak of Nagarjuna. Have you heard about Nagarjuna? The intellectual feats of Nagarjuna. These are the heterogeneity and plurality of the greatest nation. and voice is a crucial component of Indian legacy. We believe in voice. We believe in speaking out. And India is a country, is a democracy where we can speak out anything and everything. Okay, I do not know what will happen after 10 years or after 1 month or 2 months. I do not know. But for now, I know for certain that we can speak. Okay, to the next. I have spoken about the preamble of the Constitution and come to Roosevelt. Roosevelt speaks of 4 freedoms. All of you might have heard about Roosevelt. And Roosevelt speaks about these 4 freedoms in the context of American democracy. The freedom to speech, right? And we have Indian history before independence, Indian history after independence. Let me discuss 2 other aspects before we go to the next theoretical part. Okay. So today in India, we have what is called a differentiated citizenship. A citizenship which is based on certain divergences, which is becoming very brutal. Which is, there are certain group of people who believes in a rhetoric of blame, in a rhetoric of hatred. And this has been visible in the partition riots. India got independence in 1947. Soon after independence, what happened? There was a war, there was a riot in India, which is called the partition riots. And that subcontinent was partitioned into 2 nations. One was Hindustan, the other was Pakistan. And the carnage was intense with massacres, forced conversions, mass abductions, and dismemberment of bodies. By 1948, it subdued it. By then, we lost nearly 70,000 lives. And as per the record, 75,000 women were raped. Okay, therefore, any conflict, any riot, any massacre in a situation will lead to women being held in a vulnerable position. Women are always the target of the power. Okay, that is, these are not my concepts, right? These are the concepts of, okay, to the next slide. Okay, you can pass that. Okay, I have spoken about this. And now let me give you another instance of the CAA. You have heard about that CAA. What is that? Citizen Amendment Act, which was late now. It is now being challenged in the Supreme Court. The government tried to impose it earlier, but was forced to take away in December 2019. What is this act? What is this act? It is an attempt to track Indian citizenship to non-Muslims. Now, any person from the neighboring country, maybe Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, any person from the neighboring country who is an Adivasi, a Buddhist, a Christian, a Jain, a Parsi, a Sikh, or any person can be an Indian citizen, but he should not be a Muslim. Okay, look at that aspect. And what happened? Soon after this act, large-scale protests. You saw JNU in fire. It is the student community always rising against such such atrocities. We teachers are never bothered because we are happy with our heavy pockets. No, we are scared that any strike will deprive of us the heavy packet, which is a UGC scale, too heavy for us to be taken home. So we have an eminent person who is ready on the other side of the online to give you a talk on cultural studies, Dr. Prabhakar. And I will stop for the time being. Okay, and you can relax. I know some of you are disturbed by concepts, ideas. Some of you are provoked. Never mind. We will continue if time permits, if there is a chance. If not, we will enter into meaningful discussions and deliberations. Let us wait. Let us hear Dr. Prabhakar. Okay.
Thank you, sir. It is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome our next resource person for the plenary session. I welcome Dr. S. Prabhakar, Head and Professor of English Manoranmayam University, Tirunelveli. He is a dynamic person and has published over 8 books. He has done 17 publications of books and journals. He has guided and mentored many MPhil and PhD scholars in their research products. He was also the editor of the MS University from March 2008 to April 2012. He is the editor of the online journal Literary Quest. I invite Sir to bring out his wealth of knowledge. Without further ado, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Dr. S. Prabhakar to take over the session. Sir was about to join us offline, but due to some issues, he has joined us online. So let's give it up to him. Over to you, sir.
Hello, good morning. Dr. Ajit, am I audible and visible?
Morning, sir. You're audible, sir. Please,
Yeah.
sir.
Dr. Ajit, very good morning. I hope I'm audible and visible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
And how about my slides? Are they being shared?
Sir. Visible. Visible. Visible.
Yeah. See, the most respected secretary, the principal of V.O.C. College, Thoothukudi, the head of the department of English, the organizer of this program, Dr. R. Ajit, my good young friend, and learned dignitaries, scholars, colleagues, and students from various colleges. Good morning to you all once again. At the outset, I place on record my inconvenience to attend this conference physically due to some say government assignments that I couldn't make it physically. And I'm sorry, Dr. Ajit, for not making it physically. And I must thank and apologize to Dr. Neto, the resource person, for stopping him in the middle. And I thank him for providing me the time and space to speak in the middle. Thank you very much, sir. And I'm really sorry for the inconvenience. Dear friends, this conference is a highly, I would say, timely and appropriate because the present day academics, it revolves only around the cultural studies and the aspects of post-cultural studies. I would like to rather introduce a concept called globalization, right? After a globalization. And what is this globalization and literature? And what is literature? That we would say literature always sprung from the soil. It is from the soil. It is Say the culture studies, the working definition, or the most, I would say, the simplest definition that one can provide is this is a post-Marxian academic discipline that problematizes all the products, which considers knowledge not as a neutral phenomenon, and therefore this production of this knowledge and the reception of the knowledge have their own politics of signification. By signification, that I mean from the stand or from the perspective or from our own standpoint, that we view the matters, experiences, and derive meanings out of it. Therefore, we give importance to the positionality in cultural studies. Right? What is the position that I take, and from which position that I perceive, and I identify with whom, and what is my empathy? I empathize with whom and with what, and therefore meaning is rather arrived at. And this globalization, it is a concept used in diverse field of studies at present, and the use of this term globalization is increased significantly from 1995. And what is this global? Right, global or globalization or neologism. It is a new doctrine which which rather combines both the term local and global. We can simply say global and local, and this is a fusion between these two ideologies or concepts. This was first used as a concept or as a counter ideology to globalization in Japan. The Japanese idea of this global localization is conveniently cited as the precursor concept behind the notion of glocal. But let me rather explain during the course of my lecture. Even before, say, the Second World War or the post-World War scenario, we had a kind of a globalization, and the term was used colonization or the trade, the European trade, or the European powerhouses, or the European power center. So this European power center or the European consciousness and the imperialism and the cultural hegemony have been experienced by the global community for years together, and they wanted to create a counter ideology to the power structure. And the Japanese, right, you know what happened to them in the Second World War, as opposed to World War consequence. The Japanese, they wanted to encounter the American capitalism and also the European imperialism by retrieving their local ideologies, and therefore, in order to encounter the globalization, which means that globalization, we can very well say this is a quite an euphemistic usage of American capitalism or European imperialism. Right? This is another form of that another form of colonization, and we can say neo-colonization. And therefore, as a counter ideology, the Japanese, they found the global localization. There are several interpretations of globalization in the literature, which means the plurality. Right? We are talking about multiculturalism, multinationalism, and all these multipolar issues. So we can find out the plurality illustrates both the heuristic value, say the value in our forming our own episteme, forming our own system of knowledge of the concept itself. How do we construct our knowledge system or our episteme, either by going local or by going global or global? That what is our standpoint, as well as the fact that its appropriation is often shaped by disciplinary blinders. Right? There is no discipline. In fact, culture studies itself is multidisciplinary, not just interdisciplinary. It is multidisciplinary. It it accommodates all the right, it accommodates all the conceptual forms available in all branches of learning to understand and experience, interpret a text, and so on. So Roland Robertson, that he was the first one to use the term globalization in the present concept. And what are the methodologies of this adoption of globalization? It should be noted that globalization and globalization are related. Number one, right? We cannot, right? They are not binaries. In fact, they are not, right? They are not binaries. They are not contradictories, not even corollaries, but they are contributories. Right? Globalization and globalization are contributories. As globalization emerged after globalization's emergence, the social scientific debate. So globalization, right, as I said, it can be viewed as a byproduct of globalization, number one. Number two, this is also considered a reactionary mechanism against globalization. So this is something like structuralism and post-structuralism, colonialism and post-colonialism. The term post has two meaning, which is after structuralism or against structuralism. Similarly, this is right, this globalization and these globalizations are related terminologies or related concepts, and at the same time they can also be treated as say binaries, right? A dichotomy, an ideological dichotomy. But the underlying notion of fusion or cultural hybridity, it is not new, right? Because right, we have right, we know what are the causes and effects of a colonization, right? And the discussion, actually this is the word that one needs to rather remember, a Japanese word, Professor Tomiyuki Usagi, right? Tomiyuki Usagi has proposed the notion of local studies by having a Japanese term, a terminology, puppet. Right? It is puppet, and puppet means think globally and act locally. So this is a Japanese. In the beginning, it was Japanese, and Roland Robertson, Eric Swingido, and Victor Rodomet, they all popularized these concepts of this globalization. And see, we are talking about homogeneity, and homogeneous culture will never help anybody. And it is only the diversified or the diversity in culture alone can bring meaning to our existence by way of accepting the other, by way of accepting the alien culture, alien tradition, or our neighbor's traditions, our neighbor culture. And this is one on the one side that we can take this globalization as a homogeneity and globalization as decentralized, right, decentralized concepts. According to Robertson, it makes no good sense to define the global as if the global excludes the local. Globalization or a global community could never exclude the local. Right? The local is a part of a global. In somewhat technical terms, defining the global in such a way suggests that the global lies beyond all localities as having a systematic properties over and beyond the attributes of units within a global system. The point here I try to make is that global does not exclude the local. Okay, so globalization, it indicates that growing importance of the continental and global level is occurring together with the increasing salience of local and regional levels. Right? I'll make it very simple in my next slides and in a course of my discussions. But I just give you a theoretical framework how to rather understand the local experiences and the local color literature, and what is the concept, right, from right? From where or from which discipline, from which point of view that we can interpret our local culture and our local literature with all pride and privileges. So that is the objective of my discussion. Right? There is nothing called global. There is nothing called local, and it is always local. Right? It is always local. The local includes the global. The global includes the local. So, the heterogeneity and decentralization. The moment that we are talking about local culture, we are talking about regionalism or regional culture. We are right. We are in an attempt to decentralize the concepts. Right? Heterogeneity. We are against. Right? We are against homogeneous. Right? Homogenization. We are against homogeneity. Okay, so the local spaces are shaped and local identities are created by a globalized context as well as by the local circumstances. Let me give an example. This is very simple and it is very easy to understand too. Say in Thoothukudi district, right, we have a city, the town, the nearby town from Thoothukudi is Kovilpatti. And from in this Kovilpatti region, which is known for Tamil literature. Most of the Tamil poets and the celebrities, Tamil literary celebrities are from this region, and this region is called Karisal. Karisal is a local color. The region is called Karisal, and the literature is also called Karisal literature. Mind you, of the recipients of Sakitya Academy awards for Tamil literature, one third of the writers are from this Karisal region. From Thoothukudi, or we can simply say between Thoothukudi and Virudhunagar. And so that is the richness of the culture. That is the richness of the regional literature, and we call it a Karisal literature. And this Karisal literature, it is region specific, culture specific, religion specific, language specific. And at the same time, this Karisal literature can be compared with the Apache literature in America, the Australian literature, and the Aboriginal literature of Australia, and of course the Maori culture of this New Zealand. And when we try to understand the culture of Maori, the Aborigines, the Apacheans, and the Cherokeans, we can very well understand that what is this Karisal and what do they write about and what are the similar. This is not, I'm not just making a comparative analysis of the authors, that we are trying to understand the global culture by understanding our own local culture. By understanding the local literature, we can understand the global literature, because literature always springs from the soil. It is always rooted to the soil and always rooted to the region. And this is not something new to us. Right? Thomas Hardy is a regional writer. Robert Frost, a regional writer. Walt Whitman, a regional writer. And we call it New England. We call it Essex, Wessex. We call it Concord. So all are other regional writers, and we have New Orleans literature in America and Aboriginal literature in Australia, Maori literature in New Zealand. They are not just making the tribal, right? It is not a tribal literature, or it is not just indigenous literature. We can very well say this is a local color literature. This is region specific. This is culture specific and language specific. Okay, so this local space are shaped and local identities are created by a globalized context as well as by local circumstances. Let me explain. What does it mean? Think globally and act locally. It is the transcultural relationships pertaining between colony and imperial center in imperialism. Okay, that what is colonies, right? What has colonies, or what colonies have done to us, right? It is not just India. Say French is a white hag in Africa, and it was the Latin American nations were colonized by Spain, Portugal, and other European power centers. Okay, So it was the European power center. It was the European imperialism that colonized 9/10 of the world before 1950, right before Second World War. And what happened? Right, what happened during this colonization, the period of colonization? What was the cultural change? What was the political? What was the political? It was not just the political change. There were cultural changes too. And it's said, as with classical imperialism, the impact of colonial incursion was not simply one way. The colonial impact was not a one-way process. It had two-way process. It was oppressive. It was not just oppressive and hierarchical. It is reciprocal. That colonization or this imperialism or capitalism, we could never say it was only oppressive and hierarchical, but reciprocal and transcultural, and eventually transformative too. Now, we, we speak in English against the European power center. It's an irony. We use the language, but to subvert, to deconstruct, right, to subvert their ideologies and find out the binaries. Okay. So it was not oppressive and hierarchical, but reciprocal and transcultural. So this applies to globalization too. Globalization is not just we cannot say that globalization swallows everything. Or globalization, it swallows all culture and it moves towards homogeneity. Globalization can also be rather taken quite positively when we say it is reciprocal and transcultural. All our local products are now with geo index, and they are sold, right, they are sold everywhere, and the local products have gained importance, the local culture gained importance, the local rituals gained importance, and the local literature also gains importance across the globe, right? And most of the Tamil writers, right, most of the Tamil literature, novels, the contemporary novels, just like by Perumal Murugan, Imayam, and others, are translated into English, and they are on the bestseller list even in America and in Canada, because they are reading they are reading our local literature by comprehending quite appropriately their regional cultural agents and markers. So this globalization, this reciprocal, transcultural, and of course, it is transformative too. So both literary writing and transcultural scenario emphasize the agency of the local and of the individual subjects and colonial communities to interpolate the discourses of the imperial power. But I have given a few theoretical concepts by Arif Dirlik, Appadurai, Homi Baba, and Gayatri Spivak. Right? And from there that you can understand, globalization constitutes what Appadurai calls a complex overlapping. Right? There is a complex overlapping, a disjunctive order that cannot any longer be understood in terms of existing center periphery models. So this is very, very important. You have a fixed understanding of a center and the margin. That what is center and what is margin, what is center and what is periphery, with the existing center periphery model, that we cannot understand the present day transformations that have taken place in our culture and in our traditions, and of course in our literary experiences. So to speak curricular literature, I would say one needs to rather understand the Aboriginal literature too, and to speak the literature of the tribes living in the eastern provinces of the nation, that one can very well understand, that by understanding them, one can very well understand the tribes of the North America, the tribes of the tribes of Europe and the tribes of Australia and Africa. Right, so it is easily be understood if we are ready to if we are ready to change the model, center periphery model. So the center periphery model is not just based on material aspects, not based on race, not based on caste, not based on religion, but it is based, it is based on all inclusive. It could be race, it could be caste, it could be color, it could be money, it could be religion, it could be region, and even among the region there is a center periphery existing. Right? In a particular region there is a center and there is a periphery. So what we are going to rather talk about the globalization and this literature, that we can very well say this local color literature. And we are say, in fact, we are proud to say that the Department of English in Manoramaniam Sundarnar University, I mean, all the departments, in affiliated colleges, the departments of English, right, they are teaching almost the literatures of all the nations. American, the new literatures, Australian literature, New Zealand literature, South Pacific literature, and now the importance of this British literature has been rather shrunk. And we are studying all regional national literatures. Then nation is a region, and region constitutes nation. Okay, it is the local, right? It is the region that constitutes nation, and the nation can be seen, witnessed in every aspect of a region. Right? It is mutual. Right? It is mutual. Without right, it is highly intertwined, and without the amalgamation, without a proper union of region and a nation, that there is this no no national perspective could rather exist. So I'm talking about this local color literature. What is this? How literature springs from the soil. It is a distinct narrative aesthetic, focuses mainly on a specific region, people, and discourses about their lifestyle and culture. So this is the time has changed. Right? The time is changed. Right? The culture, it was not the meta culture that we were talking about. Now we are talking about the popular culture. We are talking about the mass culture. We are talking about the culture of the people. By popular culture, that we mean the culture which is, it has two meanings. The culture which is very famous, number one. Number two, originally it was called, the popular is an adjective which means populous, people oriented. So the culture is people oriented. We are talking about the culture of the people, the culture of the proletariat, the culture of the mass, the culture of the ordinary. So it is not the meta culture that we are talking about. We are talking about the local culture. We are talking about the ordinary culture. We are talking about the mini narratives, the petit narratives, right? The mini narratives found in literature. So mini narratives, all meta narratives were once mini narratives. All epics were once only the regional narratives, mini narratives, and later they were rather a kind of what we call say in India, that we can say it was V.M. Sin was called Sanskritized, and say canonization. That we are canonizing the folk. We are canonizing the regional literature as epics, as grand narratives. So this local color literature, it focuses mainly on specific region, people, and discourses about their lifestyle and culture. The best example one can understand is your nearby culture, your nearby literature, the literature existing in Thoothukudi district, this Karisal literature. But I told you, even before the post-World War, even in 1850, say in France, even Guy say Maupassant, that he considers local color as the essence of realism. So what is real in literature? The regional is real. The local is real. The realism, the essence of realism is found only in the presentation of the region, the presentation of the local color. Right? And say local color is a terminology, right? It's a terminology which refers to what I have spoken about, the specific region, people, and discourses. Right. So Oxford Companion, it describes this local color is fiction, poetry, and non-fiction that concentrates only the characters, regional language, civilizations, landscape, and other aspects of a specific region. Okay. So, through which we can understand the distant lands, strange customs, exotic scenes, but remains a sense of fidelity and accuracy of the description through minute detail. Again, I say I can speak about this Karisa literature, the writings of K. Raj Narayan, who Alagiri Sami, Pumani, right, Pumani, and others. There you can find the accuracy of the description, the fidelity. There is a sense of fidelity, faithfulness, a faithful representation, a faithful presentation of the land, culture, people, and everything that you can find. It is accurate. So, where is accuracy? Accuracy is not in canonization. Accuracy is there only in localization. That this literature is faithful and loyal, not by giving a treatment or not by giving a standard treatment, but by giving only a local treatment. Right? I also made a statement saying that all literatures were only a petty mini narratives in the beginning. Later, they were canonized, and including Shakespeare's plays, they were folk tales. That most of Shakespeare's plays were folk tales, and Shakespeare had formalized, Shakespeare had given a kind of a grand narrative to the folk tales. Perhaps when they remained as a folk tale, there was fidelity and accuracy. Sometimes they lose their fidelity and accuracy when they are given a grand treatment. It, okay, so the languages in such writing are peppered with local colloquialism. We can find the colloquialism and linguistic peculiarities in regional literature. But what is real? Colloquialism is real. That we speak the language of the people. We speak quite naturally. And when we speak naturally, we must also write naturally if you want to represent, if you want to present the natural emotions of the people and the literature. So the point here is, I would like to say, it is not the universal literature, it is not the global literature, it is not the world literature in translation, it is the local literature. We are taking the local literature to the universal scenario, to the global scenario, and the globalization accommodates this kind of transformation, transcultural, right, transcultural orientations. So we don't have to rather fight against all the time. We don't have to fight against this kind of a powers at a power structure, and we can create our own power structure by sensitizing our teachers, researchers, students to spend on their literature, their regional literature, and the local color literature. All, even the cursal text, that K. Rajnarayan texts are translated into English, Bhumani is translated into English, right? And so Dharman is translated into English, and most of the writers, right? Most of the writers, that all their texts were, even Ponilan. Ponilan has written a book. The title of the book itself is Karisal, and it is translated into English as Black Soil. So all translations are now available. So what do we mean by translation into English? We are glocalizing it. We are glocalizing the literature. Right? Venkatesan is translated into Su Venkatesan's Kavarkottam is translated into English. So all these translations are available, and I request the students, I request the research scholars to work on it, to understand your local color fiction and your civilization, your landscape, and the specific region, and thereby we can take the familiar to the unfamiliar outsiders. Okay, so I give an example. These are rather the literature that we have. That we have about this cursal people, right? There is a cultural literature. It is unique that even people from other areas of Tamil Nadu, they may find it hard to understand, but because of the region-specific language and culture, right? Alagirisami, Rajanarayan, Melanme Ponnusami, Pumani, Bama, Tamilselvan, Dharman, Ramakrishnan, and Ponnilan are the most influential writers of cultural literature. All their texts are available in English. Right? Most of their texts are available in English, and thereby that we can understand. Right? We can understand the region-specific culture, and by reading Hardy, we can understand the Essex and the region, the Essex and Wessex. Right? We can understand how Hardy has used the regional language, how Robert Frost has used the regional language, how Walt Whitman has used the new, right, the region's language, how this New Orleans literature, how these Apache literatures, how these Cherokee literatures are rather unique in their sense, representing their local color. And correspondingly, these local color literatures are produced from various regions of Tamil Nadu. Say we have Kaveri literature, we have Purana literature in Tirunelveli, Konga literature in Coimbatore, Nanjil literature in Nagarkovil, Savarkad literature in Theni, Kambam area. And there are many there are many local colors available even in Tamil Nadu. But I have mentioned only a few. Karisal, Kaveri, Porunai, Kongu, Nanjil, and Savakad. But there are various local colors. And unlike its counterpart, the contemporary local color literatures written in vernacular languages in Tamil, Malayalam, Hindi, and in other languages in India, they dwell on instinctive themes. Right? What is special about this local color literature? Right? The Indian English literature written at present, the modern Indian English literature, I would say they are the lamentation over the loss of matrimonial harmony. The modern literature is only it only laments, right? And they're talking about marital harmony, marital disharmony, and other things. It is not literature. It is not themes that we are talking about. That the local color literature they talk about shepherding. They are talking about harvest, picking the fruits, and right, and about the bulls, the bullock carts, the goats, right? The goats, the animals, right? The animals, the flora and fauna, and the rivers, the dry land, the air, and all the plants of the region. So they are quite instinctive themes. They depict the native settings and they delineate the intricacies of social differences. And when these local color literatures are translated into English, these writings reach a diverse audience. They will transmit local culture and reconstructs very importantly the socio-political consciousness of the readers with local attributes. Right? And if you read your regional literature, if you read local color literature, you will construct a new socio-political consciousness. When I talk about Karisal literature, when you talk about Purna literature, Kaveri literature, we understand that all our social political consciousness are changed. I I just want to give you just a glimpse of the early writings of Indian English literature, and with that we can understand how that we have come out come out a long way from our predecessors. Our predecessors like Venkatramani, right? K.S. Venkatramani, S. Nagarajan, A. Madhavaya, right? I am talking from Tamil Nadu. A. Madhavaya, Sangar Ram, right? Sangar Ram, A.S.P. Iyer, Manjeshwari Iswaran, T.P. Kailasam, and other. These are the writers. They wrote in English, but they wrote in English, but they were representing only the Tamil region specific culture, Tamil region specific issues, and they were creating a new kind of socio-political consciousness among the English readers about the native India, about the native region. Let me give you a few examples. Right? There, say K.S. Venkatamani has written Kandan, the patriot, Murugan, the tiller, and the Chronicles of Kedaram, Kaveri Children by Shangaram, and T.P. Kailasam's All the Plays. Right? And they were talking about the local culture in English, right? In English, and thereby making the global audience accept our regional consciousness and literature. And to conclude, I would say culture studies, right? The post-culture studies at present, right? At present, it is not just a post-Marxian ideology. It is not just talking about the differences in the culture or the cultural hegemony. And culture studies, it also asserts, acclaims, celebrates the popular culture which is prevalent in local regions. And therefore, being the students of English literature, it is time that we must understand literature springs only from the soil, and we need to have, right, students of literature, English literature, we need to have, right, the global ideology to understand the regional literature, or other way around, the regional consciousness to understand global literature. So I wish the conference all success, and I congratulate Dr. Ajit for making it happen at V.O.C. College. Thank you very much, Ajit. Thank you very much. I say I'm sorry that I have no time to discuss. I got only 45 minutes permission. Thank you very much. I hope I completed within 45 minutes time. Thank you, Ajit. Thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Professor Neto. And I'm sorry that I interrupted in the middle. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. So, thank you for sharing your valuable insights in languages in India and colors of India that sprung from the social soil, globalization, and literization. So, we gain more knowledge from you, sir. So, even though you had a lot of struggles, you came, you took time from your busy schedule, and thank you so much, sir. It was really amazing. So now it's time to continue. So sorry for the inconvenience, Neto sir. So I'd like to continue with Neto sir. Sir, so you can continue.
I will just conclude with 3 slides. Okay, only 3 aspects. The rest will be taken care of by you. Okay. Now, I will take just 10 or 12 minutes maximum. I don't want to torture you. Okay. I believe that every lecture is a form of torture, unless otherwise taken with a pinch of salt. Okay, let us come. No, I don't want to. Gamban has another book called Profanations. Profanations, where he speaks of religion. And the word religion, I will just wind up. And the word religion has 2 roots. One is relegare, the other is religare. Okay. So, and in the first word, it is separating God and man. Relegare means a zone of distinction between God and man. You give a divine form or shape to God, and man is a physical entity. Okay. In which language do you pray? In your mother tongue. Do your God understand? Do your gods also speak the same tongue? Christianity was originally supposed to be spoken in Aramaic. Okay, or at the most Latin. The Bible translations were not permitted until we have the Protestant Revolution with Tyndale, Coverdale, and Miller attempting English translations. Till then, we prayed in Latin. And we never knew Latin because only gods knew Latin. Okay. Okay. Okay, you got my point. Hinduism was, or the Vedas were written in Sanskrit. Translations were not allowed. And good Hindus prayed in Sanskrit without knowing what was Sanskrit. And Muslims read their Quran in Arabic. We never tolerated translations. Okay, but because of globalization, because of what you call the globalized modernity of Arjuna Padure, your Prabhakar has referred to a book called Modernity at Large, where he speaks of the disjunctures, because of this Reformation, Renaissance, and other important humanist movements, we began to speak in local language. I personally believe that the gods who live in our minds should understand our own language. Okay, and therefore translations of holy books are permitted. And come to the next part, religare. It is binding together. It is binding together the people. Okay, these are the two meanings of the word religion. One is separating, the other is binding. Separating the divine from the human and binding the humans. Okay, and as far as our country is concerned, I spoke about the Sanatana Dharmam, and the specter of theology hangs on our heads like the Damocles sword that will rob off our shroud. Okay, we are always haunted. Have you heard about Swami Vivekananda, who came to Kodungalur temple in Kerala? Vivekananda was then not a Swami. He was only Vivekan. And he introduced himself to the Brahmin priest as Vivekananda. The Brahmin priest asked, "What is your name?" Vivekananda. Only Vivekananda? Have you no surname? Because it was the surname that bracketed him a religion. For example, we have common names in Kerala like Rajan. If you tell somebody Rajan, then they will ask you, which Rajan? And then the person will say, I am Rajan Pillai, or I am Rajan George, or I am Rajan Sharma, or I am Rajan. You get my point. Therefore, the surnames are more important than the original name, because that will signify your identity. And identity, as far as we are concerned, this democracy is concerned, is a question of religion. And this singularist idea of a religion is very dangerous. It is portentous. It is inflammable. We have seen this in the 1947 partition riots. Okay, this we have seen in the demolition of Babri Masjid. We have seen in Godhra program. We have seen that in Manipur violence. Why? The singularist idea of identity will rob you of your man. Okay, who are you? When I ask you, who are you? Can you tell me one identity? No. You are not a singular identity. Your identities are fragmented, fractured, floating. Okay. It is a floating signifier. I am a man because I am not a woman. Therefore, the self calls for other. Okay, the self calls for the other. Therefore, the difference is there in the identity. And I want to speak about you this identity. Now, our identity is always against the other person's identity. Am I right? I am because I am not you. Okay, you get my point? Okay, very good. Therefore, and identity becomes very dangerous when there is a singular affiliation to a particular community. And the radical shift in identity we saw in 1947 partition, when people began to have the sectarian identities like Muslims, Christians, Sikh communities. I have spoken about the Sikh riots, right? Soon after the assassination of Indira Gandhi. The Sikhs were witch hunted along the streets of Delhi and North India. Many were because they happened to have that identity organ. And unfortunately, I should say something very disturbing for me, which means that the religion, when we put on a particular identity on us, when we are compelled to wear something, that is a dissolval of our identity. Now we should have a particular dress because we like to have it. You have one important writer, Slavoj Žižek. You might have heard about Žižek, Zedek, who speaks about the inexistence of the feminine. The inexistence of the feminine because of particular dress codes. Right? You should not impose a particular discourse on a particular individual. And let me speak one more aspect, There is always a conflict between cultural homogenization and cultural heterogenizations. You can be several. Am I not right? Don't you have a several identity? There are several identity for a person. I will quote something for your information. The same person can be, without any contradiction, okay, an American citizen of Caribbean origin with an African ancestry, and he can be a Christian, a woman, a liberal, a vegetarian, a long distance runner, a historian, a school teacher, a novelist, a feminist, a heterosexual, a theater lover, an environmentalist, a tennis fan, a jazz musician, and someone who is deeply committed to the cause of humanity. You can be several individuals at the same time. Get my point? Yes, you are not one individual. Therefore, again, there are plural and diverse identities in you. What happens when religion comes upon this? The specter of the religion takes away your identities. You are either a Christian or a Muslim or a Sikh or a Parsi or a Jain. Am I clear? We are not. We are not one identity. We can prioritize our identities. Today, here in the college, you are a teacher. You are a student. But at home, you are a wife and you are a doctor. You are prioritizing your identities. Right? In the football ground, you become a football player. While you watch a movie, you become a theater lover. Therefore, there is the question of prioritizing your identities, and there is a question of your melting frame. You can melt your frame and move your kaleidoscopes of identity. Okay, and religion is a great intervention as far as the multifarious, the heterogeneous, the complex dynamics of identity. And when you confine yourself to a singular identity, you become inflammable. When you are Hindu alone, when you are Christian alone, when you are a Muslim alone, you become dangerous. Dangerous to the society. You become a suicide bomber. Get my point? You become a terror. You become a machine. We call it as a biopolitics. This is called the biopolitics of terror. You begin thanatopolitics of death, necropolitics of cruelty. Okay, just because imagine, you have heard of sadists. The sadists are sadists because they confine themselves to a particular identity and then they become cruel beyond dimensions. Okay, therefore, to confine yourself to one identity will be dangerous to the society. Let not your religion identify you as the person. Okay. Another point is Islamophobia. You know, Garvapasi, love jihad, all these are concepts which are common to you. Okay. You know, love jihad, Garvapasi. Should I speak? All these have come because of identity. When I don't want to go into the complexities. You can. And to the next, last slide, you know. Okay. Yes, I spoke about Slavo-Zigzag. Identities being floating, multiple, individual. Okay. And one more point. No, reason and choice should be there. You should exercise your reason to choose your identity. Otherwise, there will be the illusion of destiny. There will be the illusion of destiny. We have a great book, Identity and Violence, The Illusion of Destiny by Amartya Sen. If you are interested, read it. Okay. And to my last point of discussion, you have heard about the aporia of Derrida. What is this aporia? Aporia? The irresolvable dilemma. There is a contradiction in the paradox of sovereignty. We always want to be ruled, right? We are either rulers or ruled. Whenever you form a group, one of you become a leader, unknowingly or knowingly. That is the paradox. And in a democratic sovereign, I have already spoken to you, he becomes the law and the violence. Okay. And now let me go to capitalism. I have spoken about capitalism, I hope. And now to the concluding session of my argument. I will read for you. Okay. Diversity and heterogeneity are the soul of Indian culture. The umbrella term Indianness is used to camouflage ourselves as Hindutva, which is a very dangerous notion. Indian nationalism came to be called Hindu nationalism. Let me take you to a debate in the Constituent Assembly. Now, we had the Constituent Assembly, and Dr. Ambedkar convened a meeting on a particular day to decide the name of the country. He thought it would take only half an hour, but it took 1.5 days to settle on the issue of the name of this country. What is the name of this country? What is the name of this country? India. Originally it was Bharat, then came Mahabharat, then came Hindustan, then came Hindustan, United Hindustan. There were so many debates as to what name should we have. And alas, we chose the name India, which has a non-religious connotation. Okay. And you know, to whom is this constitution dedicated? To whom this constitution dedicated? The Constitution of India? There was again a debate. Should we dedicate or should we take that pledges in the name of God? Are we allowed to take pledges in the name of God? No. Normally you should not. We take pledge in the name of the Constitution. And the Constitution is dedicated to the people of India. And there was again a debate on this particular aspect. It took hours and hours, and there was voting. And there was 63 votes favoring that the Constitution be dedicated to the people, and 42 votes favoring that it should be dedicated to God. And people won by 20 or more margin. That is this country where people are more important than God. Okay. And now we are now living in a country which is feeling the plague of hatred. The monstrous forms due to racist and majoritarian politics. We hear the euphor of a Hindutva nationalism breeding violence, right? And we are helpless victims of a failing and faltering democracy. Fascism is there, slouching towards the Indian institutions of power. Okay, court, media, the government machinery. It is imperative that we should embody the value of democracy. Let us stop the cacophony of communal hatred. Let us have the symphony of fraternity, the symphony of brotherhood for a happy and comfortable future. Okay, we should not settle down unless we allow an atmosphere, an environment conducive to our growth. My dear listeners, if not now, never. Okay, therefore, it is high time that you begin to think the future of your country. You may be happy that your children will only suffer. No, I believe that you will suffer more than your children if you don't change your perceptions, because the entire world is going in a very wrong direction, dictated by singularist affinities and neoliberal capitalism. Okay, thank you. And I stop. Have you anything to share with me? If you have any difference of opinion, I'm only happy, because I believe voice is crucial in knowledge. As teachers, you should encourage your students to voice their dissent. Okay. You should never teach the what of it. You should teach only the how of it. That is why I gave you practical examples. Okay. And as students, you should never learn abstract concepts without their practical application, because you need livelihood, and for which you need the practical application. You become, when you learn science, you are learning more technology than science. More technology, less science. There is only less. That is why you have greater avenues in the field of science. It is high time that we reformulate, modulate, modify, mutate the liberal arts and humanities in our classrooms. Okay. Thank you. Anybody want to comment on my, or want to disagree with me? The voice of dissent. I like it. Okay. Am I clear to you? Okay. Thank you for your patient listening. And it was a wonderful experience coming over to Thoothukudi. And to personally, Thoothukudi, that is the place we call in our country, Thoothukudi. It is very a home country to my own family, because my father, as a businessman, used to have trade in marine products, which is called the fishing industry, but particularly the nets, the plastic nets, which in 1986 we began in Kerala. With the coming of the mechanized boats, and we used to buy things from Thoothukudi port, right? Therefore, my bonding with Thoothukudi is as early as my birth in the 70s. All right, okay, that is something I am very proud of, and this is my second coming to this place, and it's a homecoming, right? Thank you very much. Thank you.
I take a moment to convey my special thanks to Dr. Vincent B. Neto for taking his time and gracing this occasion in spite of his busy schedule. Your expertise has added invaluable assets to our knowledge and has enriched the session. Thank you, sir. Now, we're about to watch a short AV on the back-end work and the process behind the two-day international conference on cultural studies in Indian socio-literary scenario.
So now it's a feedback session. Now I would call upon Dr. Kai Kannan Prasad, Assistant Professor of English, Loyola College Autonomous, to give the feedback.
Good afternoon. See, relax. One thing, I'm not here to give you a feedback, but then I'm going to take 15 minutes of your time to correlate both the teachers, professors who had spoken before me, and it will also be part of the feedback. But you should remember one thing. You have heard the professor speak. I ask you to relax because I'm not here as a professor. Of course, I'm an assistant professor in Loyola College, but I want you to remember that I am the friend just before your examination in your UG and PG, comes and puts everything together and then makes you understand all the concept in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, right? So that's what I'm planning to do. So that's the role I'm going to have here. Why am I doing this? I need you to understand that the conference is on cultural studies. So I thought I would give you a gist of how basically you can understand, because I could see that there are some undergraduate students and many postgraduate students and research scholars as well. So I thought I would give you a gist of what's happening here. How can you make, how can you comprehend the situation that is happening here? So I have 6 points. And if you're interested, you could note it down. So you would also know that when you get to the 6th point, whatever I'm trying to share here, it would be done. So it's a sharing, it's not a lecture, please, right? So relax, just listen to me, just take note of these 6 points. First point being, why should we study cultural studies as a literature student? Now we are as an academician, we are living in an era of interdisciplinarity. Right? In the last 2 days, you had seen that many people, if at all, if you could assume that, do not make sense at all. Right? Where is the literature here? Right? Why is that the world being so talked about a lot? Right? Why is that theory being talked about a lot? Right? Where is the literature here? Right? So you have that feeling, but we need to understand that literature comes from the society itself, the world we live in. Right? If at all somebody asks you a question, Koli modala vandada, mutta modala vandada. It is the typical situation. All right. So don't worry about it. We are going to start with this very simple point. Culture. Right. So what's culture? And I'm going to start radically with this first point, saying that, first point being, meaning of culture is constructed. Now we should be very happy we are all literature students. Why? We don't use words just like that. Come on, I'm going to use it. No. I say constructed. I didn't say creator. And when do we say constructed? There has been an effort, human labor, right? Dr. Vincent B. Neto was referring to Hannah Arendt. Hannah Arendt has talked a lot about human labor, right? Human labor is involved in the construction of the idea called as culture, right? So it is a human entity, right? There is no God play there. There is no creation there. The culture, no, we created it. Right. So there is no point when people say that culture no, don't believe them as well. Right. It is somebody else who created it. It has been all along. So it has scope of being changed. So that is why we say meaning of culture is constructed. Point number 1. Point number 2. Culture as a mixture. Not the mixture we eat, but then anyways, it's a mixture as well, right? What is a mixture? Mixture of so many ingredients. If you want to make coffee, what are the ingredients? Right? If you have to start systemically, you have to start with LPG gas, right? Or, everything, right? Coffee powder, milk, or, according to your preference, right? Nadu chakara, whatever that is, so many ingredients are involved, right? If you have to make something very simple as a coffee, look at a complex concept like culture. So what are the ingredients of culture? Can anybody very quickly tell me? Because let me give you the clue, right? Whatever you say will be part of culture. Any clues you have? Culture. MA students, especially if any MA students are here, please venture a guess, right? The dress I am wearing, is it part of my culture? Right? I did not identify which culture I am from, right? But then dress is part of our culture, right? The language we speak, is it part of our culture? Very much part of our culture. The food we eat, right? English pesnal Tamil and Amari, shawarma saptalum, right? Shawarma has become kind of the national, but food is also part of our culture, right? What else? The fine arts, right? The way we, show creativity, right? Musical instruments, all these things, put it together in a big anda, right? Mix them together. What does it become? It becomes a proper mixture, right? So culture is very much as this, and that is the complexity of trying to define culture itself. Somebody asks you very easily, what is culture? Solunga paapom abdina, right? We don't have a definition. Maybe you could go to Merriam-Webster dictionary. Maybe you could go to Oxford dictionary. Read out, right? Even then, Merriam-Webster dictionary makes it very complicated. One meaning irukadu, 7 meanings will be there, right? 7, 8 meanings will be there. One of it will be literary meaning, right? So you have all these meanings. So it is a very complex term, but then let us simplify it. How am I trying to do this here? I am eliminating one after the other. At the 6th point, you will have a rough understanding of, like the friend who tells you stories before the exam day, you will have a rough understanding. Okay, right? Doesn't matter if I understand it. I have something to write an essay, 20-mark essay, that much, right? Okay, so right. 3rd point. The mixture called culture is not quantifiable, right? It is not quantifiable. It does not work with coffee. Coffee, if you put too much chicory powder, color will look like dark brown, like tea color, right? If you put less chicory, but then some of us who are very coffee fans, we like less chicory, more coffee, right? The smell, the coffee, if at all you like coffee very much. I am a coffee fan, so I'm talking about coffee. If you like coffee very much, right, you get that flavor, right? Unlike coffee, right, culture does not work in such a way that this has to be put, as an ingredient, only this much. So let me ask you, if you are from Tamil culture, right, if you are from Kerala culture, right, tell me what percentage of dress is part of it, what percentage of food is part of it, what percentage of language is part of it. You cannot measure it. And that is why I say what? The mixture is not quantifiable, right? Okay, point number 4. Like I told you, cultural studies is interdisciplinary. You can pick anything under the sun. If MA students here or PhD students who would like to continue a research into the future, write a lot of papers, cultural studies is one area where you can keep digging, you can keep excavating, you can bring in a lot of things into the fray, academic fray, as in, right? So why? So let me give you very simple examples. If you are interested in English studies, you can do that. Psychology, sociology, semiotics, political science, structuralism, mythology, mythological studies. And recently, because of the advent of technology, we are also coming with something called as the code studies, right? And you should know that before you even cross another 5 years, some of you in this very own room might be asked to study computer languages like Python, R+, not Java, C++, they are outdated, that is for technologists. And then there is this new AI called as Dev. How many of you heard about Dev? Raise your hands. Yes, very good. Nice. At least very few. Good. Very good, right? What is Dev? Dev is a developer, which is not a typical AI where you are looking for answers for the questions. It creates codes for you. They say that that is the next step. So what am I talking about? When I am talking about technology here, you are not only a cultural studies researcher, you also become a digital humanist researcher. Right? Why? I know my literature. I know how to interpret the world. Language is part of it because I'm a cultural studies researcher. But then, in order to interpret language, what am I going to do? I have endless quantity, right? So many data. Data set is so much. Like last 10 years, etana Tamil pada vandadu. Can you start listing it just using Wikipedia? No. Python can do it for you. We call it as web scraping. You type a simple command, it will pick up all Tamil films, list it in an Excel sheet for you, right? Now, these things you cannot do. You cannot do it manually. You need technology. Ethical use of AI, not unethical use of ethical use of AI. In order to answer a question, provide solution, you are doing this, right? So, like I said, cultural studies is interdisciplinary. And the fifth point, culture is not a dead entity. All right. For a simple example, if you say that culture for a prolonged time should not change, then the person who is saying that does not know what he or she is talking about it. Culture should change. Change another culture. Right? We use a very superb term, organic. Right? We love our organic study. Organic tea, organic plastic bag, right? Organic, everything organic. Right? So, culture should be organic, right? It will be considered as a dead entity if it does not grow, right? And it is the same with all of us, right? We are also very dynamic in nature. We grow, right? Our dress sizes grow, everything together. So culture is very much part of it. And then the final point, I'm going to give you an example so as you understand the last 5 points. And then I'm going to put it in a crux. And I'm going to use the example of what Dr. Vincent Netto was talking towards the end of his lecture, and also what Prabhakar sir was commenting towards the end. I'm going to use identity as an example. And I'm going to give you an analogy, right? So that you understand. So that what am I trying to do here? It is a very common example of how cultural studies works. But then when we apply it to our own life, you have that, bang moment. This is cultural studies, right? That kind of a moment. All of you went through school. Like, all of us, right? I studied in Virudhunagar, right? And my native is Virudhunagar. I studied in the school called KVS Matriculation, right? Sulakarai, right? Now, when I was in 6th standard, if you open any 6th standard student's bag, you will find wrestling cards, right? Our teachers used to have a very tough time, right? Confiscating it. They even went to one step ahead. The surrounding of the school, whatever shops sell wrestling cards, they used to go on IT raids to them. Right. And then they used to write names on the boards. Inniki yaarla wrestling card vaangananga appdin sollitu. It used to be very embarrassing. But then we grew out of it. Culture, right? Organic. We grow out of it. Becomes a culture. Right? If you open a 7th standard student's bag, cricket cards. Right? 8th standard student, much worse. Bag la paakavena, water bottle la paakano. What will be there? Fishes, guppies, goldfishes, right? Mollies, all these things would be there. What do you think we did with it? Chumma, a common culture, exchange culture, Right, 10th, 11th, 12th, we become a little elite, right? Teenagers, and the stamp collection, currency collection, we up the, ante, right? We do that, right? So, look at that. I'm going to ask you a very simple question. You look at me, right? You look at me. Do you think that if I don't involve myself as a 6th standard student, 7th standard student, if I don't create an identity that I like hit show, right? I like, Dhoni. I don't like Dhoni. I like Virat Kohli. If I don't create this culture, do you think I will be included in my classroom? Think about it. Think about it. All of you are going to become future parents, right? Already parents, future parents, right? How many of you think that I shouldn't give my son or daughter phones? Please don't do that, I would say. Please don't do that, I would say. Why? In the classroom, your son and daughter will become a social exclusion. What do you think school kids talk in the free time they have? The games they play, the videos they watch, right? Instead, do something ethically, right? Give them for 1 hour so that they understand how to use mobile phones, right? They shouldn't be totally excluded from this using of technology, right? Now, what am I trying to hit at? I'm just saying that when I collect wrestling cards, an identity is created for myself. And how do you think this identity can be used as an example to explain cultural studies? 3 terms: articulation, consolidation, subversion, right? Articulation, consolidation, subversion. I'm going to talk about this identity, use these 3 cultural studies terms, and in a very simple analogy, going to explain to you how culture is articulated, how culture is consolidated, how that identity subverts, right? Simple. Before the 6th standard happened, one fine day, a kid from Madras would have met his cousin from Mumbai who had been collecting wrestling cards. So what does he do? He pulls the saree of his mother and then says that immediately get me wrestling cards. So what she will do? She will create a demand in Virudhunagar that, somebody's friend from Chennai whose cousins are in Mumbai are playing with wrestling cards. In the vacation, my son watched it. He wants the wrestling cards as well. Do you think he will play with it at home? He wants to show off, right? He wants to show off. He or she wants to show off. What do? The next day, they take it to school. Amma enna solluvaanga? Pathrama vachukko appadinu solluvaanga. Satyama kekka maatom. The son or a daughter will definitely take it to the school. School ku poitu summa irupanga nenikiringa? They will show off. Right, ee todadada, right, kilichiradada, coffee utiradada, some, right, all these kinds of things will be happening. Now, what do you call this in cultural studies terms? Articulation, right? Articulation. What is articulation? When a culture is constructed, this is how it is constructed. Right? Suddenly you create a demand for a culture. Your popular culture today very much works in this manner. Popular culture, any popular culture, right? How many of you listen to Jamal Kudu? Right? We love our Jamal Kudu songs very much. Yes, it's my ringtone as well, right? And why do you think I am wearing black and black? Premam is still part of my memory. I like it very much, right? Everybody wants to become Nivin Pauly. Any, heroic scene happens, you are like, pallu kadikanu kannu chivakanu, right? Popular culture. You want to be a part of it. You want to be a part of it, right? Why? Like I told you, articulation. You somehow, somewhere want to be part of a culture. You want to identify yourself as somebody, someone, right? So articulation happens. After articulation, what happens? Next step? Consolidation. When you repeat the articulation again and again in less than 3 months, when 6th standard A, Kannan had wrestling cards, by the end of that same term, before the end of the quarterly examination, what do you think will happen? All of 6A would have started talking about, or at least bought it by now, wrestling cards. Before the half-yearly exam, 6th standard, complete 6th standard would have got it. Repeated articulation of a cultural identity becomes what? Consolidation. Now, if 7th standard students do not have wrestling card, 6th standard student will look at what wrestling card? Neela enna senior ni? What senior are you? Right? You don't even know what is a wrestling card. You don't know Big Show. You don't know Undertaker. Right? What kind of person are you? You are right. That's the kind. So consolidation, how does consolidation happen? The majority, they seem or sound like they are the majority, but then they show themselves as very confident, very cool people. We are all very cool people only when we take part in a cultural identity formation or construction. And we are cool when, how does this cultural identity formation happens? Only when you buy the wrestling cards, right? So it becomes consolidation. And after consolidation, subversion, right? Subversion is bad, dangerous, not good, but it is inevitable. What is subversion? The culture which has become consolidated now starts to subvert other cultures, saying that we are the only relevant culture. You are all insignificant, right? So that's what is happening, right? And a final note, let me tell you one more identity crisis and then I'll be done with it. How media plays a role in identity creation, very much like what we are trying to talk about here. All of you watch advertisements of Vim, all those things, right? You would obviously see that the woman in an advertisement always comes in a very, neatly groomed cotton saree, right? Makeup, full makeup. And then when husband calls, she's like, "Vandutenga," and then she gives the lunch box. When son and daughter calls, she comes and gives the lunch box. All these things happen. And do you think this is the reality that happens at your home and my home? Right? But then they are creating an identity. You ask your mother how high maintenance cotton sarees. They will not buy you cotton saree. They will not also get cotton saree. They will get other forms of saree. Chumma kasangido, right? You don't like it. But look at the identity they are creating, right? And it is the same example: articulation, consolidation, and subversion. They create that cotton saree potava, you are elite. They create an aura around it, right? And with toothpaste as well, right? With toothpaste as well, right? Back in the age-old times, we were all brushing our teeth with neem, right? Charcoal, salt. Today, Samantha, Shruti Hassan are coming and asking you what? Unga toothpaste la? Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for giving our valuable insights. We enjoyed it. I feel elated in introducing Dr. Ketar Pal, Assistant Professor of English from St. John's College, Palamkote. He is a renowned alumni of our college. He was an inquisitive as a student and used to shoot the staff with many questions after each lecture. So welcome, sir, to give a valuable feedback about this conference.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm very happy and proud to be part of this V.O.C. family. I'm back to my alma mater after these many years, and it's a happy union. Thanks for the organizers, the co-coordinators, the head of the department, the principal, and the organizing secretary of this two-day international conference on cultural studies in Indian socio-literary scenario. Really, this has disturbed the academic scholars. Yesterday, the colonized, and today the version of the colonizers. And very beautifully in the morning, Dr. Natto threw light on the politics of culture, the colonial and the colonized, the feudal versus the corporate, traditional versus the techno world, democracy and anarchy, by unveiling Agamben. Not only that, he politicized how we are moving towards a monotonous monopoly. If the government or the state colonizes the culture, it means the death of culture, degeneration. Indeed, yes, we have been reduced to numbers in the other world, in the digital world, is it not? Is it not? Even when the babe is in the womb, it is given a pick-me number by the primary health centers, without which you cannot go to the operation theater. We are living in a highly techno world, and we must be cautious. And all these things happen because of the leftist critical thinkers, right from Marx and Engels, which was dialectical materialism, has been converted into cultural materialism. Antonio Gramsci looked at that basic structure as hegemony, and Louis Althusser termed it as ideology, and the later cultural critics interpreted it as cultural materialism. How culture becomes the basic structure in controlling power and everything of the country has been unveiled by Dr. Netto. Thanks, sir. And next, I heard one voice mumbling when Dr. Prabhakaran sir presented with the title, Sprung from the Soil, Globalization and Literature. What is the relevance of this topic at this moment? I heard a mumbling. Maybe we are budding. We must be up to the level and standards of what is the need of the hour. Confess to the world, raise to the world, raise to the occasion, bringing out your own versions, the local versions. That is the meaning. Without meaning, there is nothing. Communication is not possible. And when you communicate, there is an identity. And from identity, there is identity crisis. And it is the identity crisis that he noted it down. As students, we must know how to relate and correlate things. So how the voice of the locals can be improved to the world, maybe confess to the world, was the statement given by Dr. Prabhakaran sir. And we must have rise to the occasion. And thanks to sir, because he talked about various transcultural and transformative, intercollated, convergence, and many of the technological terms that he addressed. So in this techno world, there is yet another culture is being formed. If you, there is a syllabus, one short story called Manjula Padmanabhan, Unfaithful Servants. The masters have created the technological things, but the techno world, they are trying to rule us. Try to be aware of this conflicts. And using techno and technological advancement, the ruling class try to subjugate the law. And this process will be, thesis and antithesis will be forever. Try to unveil the courts. And thanks for this August gathering. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Session 3 of the 2-day International Conference on Cultural Studies in Indian Social Literary Scenario has come to an end. I thank Dr. Prabhakar and Dr. Vincent B. Netto for their scholarly sessions. Thank you, sir. I'd also like to thank Dr. Ketrapal and Dr. Kannan for their insights. Thank you, sir. Lunch is provided in Rojkal Food Court near the PG and Research Department of English. Please have your lunch and assemble here in this hall by 2 p.m. Paper presentation slots will be announced after lunch here in this hall at 2 p.m. The volunteers and hall in charges will take you to your respective halls. Have your lunch, assemble here by 2 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Excuse me, ரோட்ஸ் ஹால் தெரியாதவங்களுக்காக இது அனௌன்ஸ்மெண்ட்டு. எங்கள் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் அங்கே தான் போவாங்க, நீங்கள் அப்படியே ஃபாலோ பண்ணி போயிடலாம். இப்படி போய் அங்கே கடைசியில் லெஃப்ட் எடுக்கணும், எக்ஸாக்ட்லி இந்த பில்டிங் பின்னாடி. அங்கே போனீங்கன்னா அங்கே டைரக்ஷன் இருக்கும். டிபார்ட்மெண்ட் ஆஃப் இங்கிலீஷ்ல இருந்து ரைட் சைடு போகணும்.